Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. I am your host, MagMongoSlade. Today we're going to talk about NXT from October 29th, 2024. But first, we must discuss the new program WWE is launching, the WWE ID program that has lit the internet on fire. The indie wrestlers seem to be pretty happy. The fans, not so much. But we're going to talk about it. And actually, that's going to be the first part of our review of NXT, because anything that had to do with developmental, we talk about it here on NXT. So, the press release reads as follows: WWE ID, WWE Independent Development to identify, support, and develop independent wrestling schools and wrestling talent. It says, part of the TKO group today announced the launch of the first of its kind developmental program designed to provide up-and-coming independent wrestlers a pathway to a potential career in WWE. The program will be called WWE ID, short for WWE Independent Development. Triple H says WWE ID is the latest in our efforts to identify and support the journey of up-and-coming wrestlers, in turn raising the profile of and strengthening the independent wrestling ecosystem. It says, following the 2021 launch of the NIL program, WWE ID has been constructed to support independent wrestling prospects and wrestling schools with world-class training, development, and mentorship. Under the program, WWE will provide prominent independent wrestling schools with the WWE ID official designation, with the goal of providing new trainees and existing talent at the select institutions with enhanced developmental opportunities. Booker T's Reality of Wrestling in Houston, Cody Rhodes' Nightmare Factory of Atlanta, Seth Rollins' Black and Brave Academy of Davenport, Iowa, Elite Pro Wrestling Training Center in Concord, New Hampshire, and Knox Pro Academy in Los Angeles are the first WWE ID independent wrestling schools to earn the official designation. WWE ID will identify top independent wrestling prospects with an official WWE prospect designation and support their development journey by providing financial opportunity and assisting with training, mentorship, and development, including access to world-class facilities, best-in-class ring training, athletic trainers, and more. WWE ID will give fans the opportunity to follow the paths of these standout prospects on the independent wrestling scene through curated, behind-the-scenes content, as well as highlights and matches showcased across WWE social platforms. So, this is one hell of a program. Now, for most people, when you think about this, you say WWE is getting involved with the indies. What I think about is it's the return of their developmental territory system. That's like they used to have Ohio Valley and Heartland, and what was the one in Georgia? It was called Deep South. That's pretty much what this is now. They're bringing back the developmental programs that will be run by, I'm assuming, contracted individuals who will be required to train their talent on their behalf. There's good things and bad things about this. Booker T's Reality of Wrestling is pretty obvious. I mean, it's been a satellite program for a really long time anyway. They're just kind of making it official. Same thing with the Seth Rollins Black and Brave Academy. It's always been a satellite program. But starting out with guys who are already under contract, Booker T, Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, and I believe Rikishi actually runs one of these programs. I think it's the Knox Pro Academy is Rikishi. It's an obvious first, organizations to get started. Clearly, just like in the past, when WWE labels a school an official partner, that's where they want people to go. So what they're saying is, here is all of our affiliates, and they just happen to be people who are currently signed under Legends contracts or active wrestlers. So Knox Pro is under Rikishi. Of course, you have the Seth Rollins school, the Cody Rhodes school, and the Booker T school. The last one, I'm not sure. I didn't look into it, but those four, at the very least, are schools with guys who have long runs in WWE, and they are under contract in some way. And basically, WWE is saying, we want the independent wrestlers to go to these places, and in exchange for going to these places and being used on their cards, which is going to benefit these companies, because now you're going to be a hot spot for indie wrestlers. They're going to want to come to Reality of Wrestling or Knox Pro or Black and Brave or whatever, because they know WWE is looking at this. Now, one of the things WWE, especially Triple H, talked about when he went over to Europe a couple of years back, right before they opened the PC up over there, is he had a really big problem with two things. One, how these guys were trained, and two, the facilities that they were trained in. By telling everybody, we're going to help upgrade their facilities and give them access to our facilities, that essentially tells the indie wrestlers, hey, if we give you a prospect label, we will promote your work as you go through the indie wrestling journey, but we also will give you access to the Performance Center. We will also, and it sounds like, give you some kind of stipend or some kind of pay until we are ready to bring you into NXT proper or something like that. This is a win-win for everybody involved. It's similar to what they were already doing, but it seemed like they just took it up to the next level. And since Triple H was the one who destroyed the territory system, the developmental territory system in the first place, bringing out a new developmental territory system is for the best. Now, the wrestlers like it because they get access to better facilities. They will be getting paid. There is a direct pipeline now between WWE and these satellite entities, where now instead of bouncing around all the independents hoping that William Regal or Gabe Sapolsky sees you, now you can just go work for Booker T and know that there's William Regal or Gabe Sapolsky or whatever is going to be watching that tape, because they're going to watch all these shows. And it's great for the companies, because the companies, one of the big problems with the independent companies is they don't have visibility. So now WWE, through its large social media platforms, whether it be YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, or whatever, if they label somebody a prospect, they're going to be promoting that prospect's journey. Basically, if you book that prospect on your card, the WWE may tweet it out, which means more people will come to the show or more people will watch the show. So it's beneficial to the companies. This is something that I thought that they would do for a long time. Namely because I always pitched, when people talk about wrestling need to be unionized, one of the things that I said is there is no official training facilities for WWE or pro wrestling in general. You would have to create them. This creates that. So now you can say, if there was to be a union, we're only bringing people in who go through this system, because at least we know you were trained appropriately in facilities that are of good quality, and yet you have good moral character because Booker T is vouching for you, Cody Rhodes is going to vouch for you or whatever, which is probably going to be more like Dustin is vouching for you, and et cetera, right? That's an appropriate pipeline between the independents to NXT to WWE. The wrestlers like it because you can finally see light at the end of the tunnel. There's no more just pointless grinding now. Now, it doesn't matter what you do anywhere else. They're telling you, you need to get to these places. And there's going to be more of them. You need to get to these places so that we can see you. Also, they're probably going to send NXT talent that aren't doing anything to these schools as well. Similar to what they did, in the territory system and what they did to NXT for a long time. Because, OVW wasn't just where they trained wrestlers. Sometimes they would send guys there who were coming back from injury. They would send guys there if they're, Vince wanted them to lose weight or whatever the case. They need to freshen up their gimmick or whatever. They would send them back to OVW, or they send them to Heartland, or they send them somewhere else. This gives them that same option. So if the company is struggling financially, even though they're probably going to get some kind of stipend from WWE, let's say that the last show didn't do very well, then you could always send some NXT talent over there and, bump the TV a little bit, or bump that next house, or bump the next couple of houses. And that could be beneficial to the company. Now, I do have a downside to this, as I think it will eventually cannibalize the Performance Center. Namely, when Endeavor bought the company, one of the things that I talked about, I probably mentioned it here, but sometimes I don't remember what I say, so I'll say it again. The PC is a money pit. All right. The NIL program, it's all good. You can bring in, college football players, volleyball players, basketball players, or whatever, and you pretty much put them on a stipend and then throw them in the Performance Center, and you see if they shake out later. Now they got to go through one of these other schools. So they probably get spend a little bit of time in the Performance Center, but then you get that prospect label. They probably ship you out to New Hampshire or something like that to make you work that independent program to see how well you get. That means you can't sit in the PC all day anymore. You're probably not going to be sitting in Florida forever anymore. So to me, they're probably going to end up shuttering the PC. Now, I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen immediately. It may take 5 years. It may take 10. But I think eventually they're going to phase out the Performance Center. Remember, earlier this year, they talked about moving it. They were going to close it and close the one in Florida and move it to Nevada or something like that. And then this happens. It's like, okay, I can see the writing on the wall. It's very expensive to recruit and train your own talent. Why not let somebody else do it for you? Let Booker T do it. Let whoever running Cody Rhodes School do it. Let whoever is running Seth Rollins School do it. Get some other schools that will do it. And they can recruit talent for you, train talent for you, and just send them talent to you when they're done with them, or when they feel like, hey, he's got a passing grade, he's done everything he can do here, ship him on to NXT. You don't need a Performance Center anymore at that point. You don't need it, because you're going to give these people facilities. They're going to raise their facilities up, and then of course you're going to give them a little bit of a stipend, and that may be cheaper than running a Performance Center yourself. I truly believe that this is the beginning of them outsourcing their recruitment and training of talent. And it's terrible. I don't like that. I like WWE recruiting and training their own talent. And I'm pretty sure Vince liked that idea too. And I'm pretty sure Triple H liked that idea too, which is why it was what they were doing. But when you look at it through the new owners, it costs a lot of money. You got full-time trainers, and you got a lot of talent, some of whom get cut every once in a while. A lot of them are going to get cut because they have no aptitude for pro wrestling, or they're not, there's not enough TV time or not enough opportunities for them at the moment. So you need something else to do all these talent. They can't just sit in the Performance Center lifting weights and doing drills. All right, you're going to have to get shipped somewhere. They're going to send you somewhere else for a while. And you're going to be Booker T's problem. You're going to be Rikishi's problem or whatever. You're not just going to be sitting around the Performance Center with a locker and that's it. So I think eventually they're going to phase out the PC. And it's a win-win for everybody except the guys who work in the PC. I don't know what they're going to do, But I like the idea. I hope it doesn't mean that they get rid of the PC. If they can keep all of this stuff and the Performance Center going, then I think it's a true win-win-win for everybody. But if the success of this means that they get rid of the PC, I don't like that. Especially if the PC is really beneficial to the college talent that they recruit from the NIL program, which is still going to exist, by the way. This is not going to be a replacement for the NIL. It's going to be they're going to be running parallel programs. So you may be a person in the NIL program who eventually comes to NXT, or you may be an indie wrestler who may eventually come to NXT. Now, this, of course, last point, Nick Khan, who talked about it when he first really came into WWE, this was a couple of years ago, when he says, you know, they were looking more at college athletes and not so much from indie wrestlers. Everybody lost their mind. You know, they thought, oh my God, they're not going to recruit indie wrestlers anymore. Well, that's not true. They never stopped recruiting indie wrestlers. What they did was they stopped recruiting old indie wrestlers. You know, they stopped looking at guys who are in their 40s and, you know, worked 15 years in Ring of Honor and bringing them guys in. They still brought in indie wrestlers because most wrestlers are indie wrestlers. Like Cora Jade was an indie wrestler. Roxanne Perez was an indie wrestler. You know, they still had indie wrestlers come in. Fallon Henley was an indie wrestler. Thea Hale was an indie wrestler. There's still quite a few indie wrestlers that have come into WWE since Nick Khan made that comment. But Triple H, of course, favors more experienced talent, while Vince favored the young, up-and-coming, let's make a wrestler, kind of how he tried to make the Ultimate Warrior and then tried to make other guys kind of like the Ultimate Warrior. He kind of favored that idea, while Triple H is like, okay, let him go somewhere else and get the experience and get a reputation, and then we'll bring him in, which is how Vince used to do things back in the 80s, before he decided he wanted to mold John Cena from the ground up, you know? And you're still going to have both of those options, where there's still going to be the NIL for the exceptional college athletes who, you know, are not going to make it in their preferred field. They're still going to be able to get to WWE through the NIL program, but now they may have to take that extra step where instead of going to the Performance Center, they're going to have to go or probably they may have to go to the Performance Center, do some training, get their basics, and then get sent somewhere else. Or they may just send somebody to Booker T or whatever and say, hey, this is an NIL talent. He stays in Texas. Take care of him for a while. So there's a lot of different options there about what they could do in terms of how they could train and recruit talent. But for me, in my cynical brain, I'm saying this is the beginning of WWE outsourcing their training and recruiting of talent. All right, so let's get into NXT. Into the regular episode of NXT now. We start with the casket match. Tatum Paxley versus Wendy Choo. Tatum Paxley brought the casket. Wendy Choo brought a bed. She was very colorful now. I don't know what's up with that. But there was garbage cans. There was a dollhouse. There were Legos and a loaded pillow. There was a lot going on here. They both jumped into the casket. Well, Wendy jumped into the casket while Tatum was already in it. The door closed, but it must be a winner, so they let them both out so they could continue to fight. The loaded pillow that's loaded with Legos, it felt out of place, but at the same time, it also felt like it fit Tatum Paxley's character, because the dollhouse is a Tatum Paxley gimmick. The Legos, even though they were in Wendy Choo's pillow, that also felt like a Tatum Paxley gimmick, but it could also be kind of a Wendy Choo gimmick. And we know the bed, which operated as a table in this match, is a Wendy Choo gimmick. And then the garbage can is just there, I guess, representing, I don't know. But it's like they split this match into a Wendy match and a Tatum match to try to bring up enough gimmicks for both of them. I'm not sure how to feel about it. Just like the first match in a long time, where I'm not sure how to feel. Like, I didn't hate it. Also didn't love it. It just felt, I guess it was fine, I guess. But the finish was kind of weird. I wasn't a big fan of the finish. Wendy Choo's on top of the casket. Tatum Paxley shoots her with the fire extinguisher. Wendy Choo falls off the top of the casket through her bed, which is through basically the box spring, or it's like a table, of course. And then she just picks her up, put it in the casket, and close the door. I was like, okay, I don't know. Again, let me know what you guys think, because I don't really have strong feelings either way about this match. I don't think it didn't click with me, but it didn't repulse me either. Maybe it's because I'm just kind of weirded out by the idea that these two characters had a casket match. And it was, I guess, a spectacle, but I don't think it really. In some ways, I think it went too far with the Legos and the garbage can and all that. At the same time, it was an interesting twist on the casket match. I don't know. Let's just move on before I talk myself into another circle. Trick Williams wants to talk to Bubba Ray Dudley. Bubba Ray Dudley said nobody came to help Trick Williams because the NXT Championship makes him a target. Then Trick Williams says he understands that and he wants revenge against Ethan Page and Ridge Holland. Asks Bubba Ray Dudley to be in a tag team with him against the two of those guys at the ECW arena. Bubba Ray Dudley says that, he got his juices flowing, which I don't want to hear from another man. I don't ever want to hear another man say, you got my juices flowing, which that's a big pause. Says that he's been thinking about the ECW arena, thinking about taking it to the extreme, but this is NXT, and he doesn't want to take anyone's spot. So he says no. He turned it down, said no chance. He doesn't want to do it. Later on in the show, Ethan Page said he wasn't done with the NXT title. That led to Ridge Holland come out and says that he wants to fight Trick Williams next, and that Bubba Ray Dudley made a smart decision by saying no. It was the best decision he ever made. So Bubba Ray Dudley came out there again, and the two of them got to discussing things, saying he didn't know much, him being Bubba Ray Dudley, saying he didn't know much about Ridge Holland before Halloween Havoc. But now he knows that he's disrespectful, says that it's debatable whether Ridge Holland even deserves a championship match, but Ethan Page absolutely does not deserve anything. Ridge Holland says nobody cares what Bubba Ray Dudley thinks because all he does is talk, and he's a nostalgia act, and his prime is overrated. Bubba Ray Dudley starts the brawl because, of course, he punched him after all of this, and that led to, of course, Trick Williams making the save and the match being on for next week. I saw a lot of people really upset about Bubba being in this position and being featured on NXT, mainly because, not only because of his age, but because people hate Bubba now. I've also seen a lot of conversation about the credibility of Busted Open Radio. We can address all that stuff. Bubba Ray is basically doing a cameo because it's going to be in the ECW arena. This is not about Bubba getting a one final run or anything like that. He's giving the rub to Trick Williams, and he's going to give the rub to Ridge Holland, give the rub to Ethan Page, have a one-off match. That's it. Now, if it turns into Bubba Ray versus Ridge Holland, maybe we can have a discussion. Also, I just found out that Ridge Holland is 36. I didn't know he was that old. Holy hell. But anyway, Bubba Ray having one match in NXT just to pop that Philly crowd is not that big a deal. And I think that a lot of the AEW fans are really, and it's mostly AEW fans that are taking that thing and running with it. Look, man, Jericho is a Ring of Honor World Champion. It's the second time he's done that. I mean, Bubba Ray can have a match on NXT in a one-off Philly arena. Who cares? You got 53-year-old Chris Jericho running around calling himself a world champion in AEW. I hate to be that guy, but if I got to be that guy, I will be. I'm going to be petty. You want to compare old guys? A one-off versus a guy who's on TV every week who just admitted he don't lift weights anymore because his joints can't handle it? I don't know, man. I understand. I'm 100% with you, though. We do got to get these old guys out of here. But as long as the ECW nostalgia is able to be juiced, they're going to juice it. They're going to do their thing. Whether I want to or not, they're going to do what they do. And since I want NXT to beat AEW, because it's funny to me, it's humorous when that happens, I'm all for it. Go for it. If Bubba Ray is the reason they lose, that'd be even funnier, actually. Interestingly enough, the credibility of Busted Open Radio. Well, in my opinion, the credibility of Busted Open Radio has been laundry for a long time now. Not because Dave LaGreca and Bubba Ray did some stuff for NXT, but because Dave LaGreca will literally kick his partners out of the show so that he could talk to Tony Khan one-on-one, and then not ask him any real questions, just let him filibuster propaganda and promote the show. pretty much for the free ball. I mean, it's a wrestling podcast. How much credibility do they really need? It's not like Bubba Ray Dudley is going to sit back and write an article, or Dave LaGreca is writing. They do a podcast. All they do is talk and give their opinions, and they run through the news. That's pretty much it. That's what every wrestling podcast does. It's not that big a deal. It's not like they're going to have some kind of breaking story or breaking news that could hurt AEW or WWE. If anything, they're just going to discuss the subject. And I don't see what the problem is if Bubba is still, for some reason, wrestling. I wish he wouldn't do that, but he's still doing it. So I guess it is what it is. Also, it's kind of fun that Trick Williams gets to be tag team partners with Bubba, because when he did his diss track on Ethan Page for Halloween Havoc, Devon was doing his Reverend Devon character in the video. So that was just an interesting thing I thought to bring up. So Ava is with Rob Van Dam. Rob Van Dam wants to do something on the show, but which will be next week. But Ava says she'll figure out what he'll actually do. Now, this is, of course, this little seed is watered in the main event, which was an absolutely crazy main event. Tag team championship match, Cedric Alexander and Javon Evans versus Nathan Frazier and Axiom. You talk about guys doing all the moves to each other, springboard blah blah blahs, flippity doodads, and corkscrew such and suches. There was all kinds of shit in here. This was the Wrestling Observer newsletter favorite match. I almost guarantee it. They love Javon Evans, and I see why. I mean, the kid is tremendous. He's athletic as all fuck. When he was in there with Nathan Frazier, I said, man, I would love to see these two guys go one-on-one. I hate they had to tag out. You know, both guys were very fast. They were doing the choreographed stuff, but it wasn't slow. It looked natural to a degree. So I enjoyed the match, but it wasn't really the type of match that I like, because it was too fast-paced. It was too many big moves. There was too many cutters. Like, once you do more than one cutter in a match, I'm just kind of out of it. But, you know, it wasn't something that I would put, you know, as one of my favorite matches, but it was, in terms of pure action, it was right up there with, you know, some of the best matches I've seen in recent memory, in terms of just pure action. In terms of decent storytelling, it was fine, you know. In terms of psychology and storytelling, it was fine. They kind of threw it out of the window here. Javon Evans left Cedric Alexander by himself because Wes Lee was coming down there with a chair, and Javon Evans just could not contain himself. He just had to go chase him with this chair. And the two of them got to brawling backstage, and Rob Van Dam stepped in between them and was like, yeah, now I know what I want to do next week. But didn't tell us what he wanted to do. Apparently, it looks like they're going to do the referee gimmick. And we've seen enough special guest referees. Too many special guest referees in recent months. I mean, this has got to be like the sixth one. CM Punk was a special guest referee. TNA done special guest referees. AEW doing special guest referees. I mean, and they've done them quite a few times in NXT and WWE recently too. I hope it's not special guest referee. I don't care what else it is. I hope it's not Rob Van Dam being the referee for these two guys having a match next week. That would suck. I know he's kind of old. Maybe he don't want to wrestle. Maybe he doesn't feel it. But special guest referees, man, come on. I don't want to deal with that. But the main event was excellent. It was fun. But again, it wasn't like a wrestler match. It was more like it's something that you would have seen on AEW. Same time, Ava is talking to Kalani Jordan, who is upset. She wants a rematch for her North American title. Nikita Lyons steps up, tells Kalani Jordan that she lost, and so she got to move on. So Kalani threatened to fight her later, and so they do. Kalani Jordan versus Nikita Lyons, which was the fourth match on the show. Nikita Lyons I don't know if she was a pirate or whatever, but she had nunchucks. I'm like, how is she a pirate or whatever? She's supposed to be a waitress or a bartender? I don't know. But she had nunchucks. And this was another example of Nikita Lyons being very big and very slow, as Kalani Jordan is extremely smooth and she's very fast. And Nikita Lyons cannot keep up with her. She was stomping around that joint like Godzilla, which is not good. It's not good. Everybody knows I love me some Paul Queen. I love me some Nikita Lyons, but she is not looking good in there. Especially when you put her in there with somebody as swift and as smooth as Kalani Jordan, it doesn't look right. So Nikita Lyons, man, I don't know if she's rusty, but she did the splits in this match. And Vic Joseph kind of made another comment like, oh yeah, social media is going to like that. But she didn't jump up in the air and do the splits. This time she just kind of got tripped into the splits. So she can still do it without tearing everything, but maybe she should stop. We know Nikita was flexible. She's not, she maybe might be flexible. Flex, baby. But every time you seem to do these things, you end up tearing something in one of your knees. Who knows, man? I don't want that. Anyway, Adrian Rizzo came to the aisleway because we had another. This is going on. This is too many. They do this a couple of times a week on NXT. There's one thing that I have to say, they overdo it, is a distraction finish. So Adrian Rizzo comes out there. She's taking her earrings off because she sees the person who attacks her. This distracts Nikita Lyons, who was winning the match. She gets, I guess, power bombed, knocked off the top rope or whatever. Kalani Jordan hits the split leg moonsault. 1, 2, 3, she wins. Rizzo then jumps into the ring and attacked Nikita Lyons. Kalani Jordan, being a goody two-shoes, actually pulled Rizzo off of Nikita Lyons and was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And then Rizzo was yelling like, she attacked me. And then so Kalani Jordan was like, okay, and then let her go. which is real. Like, okay, well, I guess she kicked your ass, you get to kick her ass. I'm okay with Nikita losing here. Kalani is on her way back to her championship matches, and that's fine. What I'm not a fan of is another distraction finish. They could have come up with a more creative way of getting to this point, or just getting Nikita disqualified because Rizzo charged her like during the entrance or something. And just something creative. This, you're feuding with this person, or you and this person had words, and so they're going to stand in the aisleway or come to the ring and distract you. We see that way too much. We see it too much. You got to think of creative ways of doing this. I would have preferred if Rizzo like attacked Nikita Lyons during her entrance. Like she had been looking for her all night until she finally found her and jumped her during her entrance. And then the match didn't even happen. That would have been fine. Same result, except for Nikita didn't actually get pinned. And it's similar with the Wesley Javon Evans thing. Like if Wesley would have just cost them the match by, I don't know, tripping Javon Evans or hitting him with a chair or something like that, versus, oh, he sees him and absolutely forgets that he's in a match. Like that's what kind of fight are you in if you're going to take your eye off of your opponent to stare at the aisleway? That doesn't make sense. And I want them to stop doing it. Stop doing it. Stop it. So we now know that Nikita Lyons was attacked by, Rizzo was attacked by Nikita Lyons. So pogs are for niggas, as usual. Now we got to find out why she did that. On another note, when it comes to Tony D'Angelo's family, Shawn Spears was trying to get himself a championship match, and my blood was boiling. I mean, I was hot at the idea of Shawn Spears wrestling for the title. Anyway, Luca Crucifino had a phone call for Tony D'Angelo, and he shooed Shawn Spears away, which made me smile, even though I'm pretty upset knowing that he's going to come back eventually. So Tony D'Angelo puts the phone on speaker, and Tony D'Angelo gets dressed down by saying, this is disrespect. You come into Philly and you didn't tell me? And I'm like, uh-oh, who is that? And then I kind of guessed that it was Nunzio, aka Little Guido, and Vic Joseph just came out and said it. Like, was that Nunzio on the phone? I'm like, oh, I've been waiting on this one. I don't know if they're gonna have a match. That's what it sounded like. It sounded like they're gonna have a match next week. That Nunzio is gonna challenge Tony D'Angelo to a match next week. I hope not. You know, I would prefer for them to have like a segment or a series of segments, because I've been waiting on them to get the FBI involved with this, the full-blooded Italians from ECW. I've been waiting for them to do this. This is the kind of shit that I want from the 2300 Arena show. I want you having NXT characters, mixing it up with the ECW characters, and these characters are perfect fit for them to interact. I love it. So I'm okay with this. I don't know if I want a match between these two guys, but I'm interested in this. All right, Heritage Cup. Charlie Dempsey wins 2-0 over Lexis King. He wins the first fall by countout. Now, Lexis King injured his leg. I actually forgot, didn't write down how he injured his leg. But that was the story of the match, as Lexis King was trying to power through the leg injury, despite William Regal, who they call him Mr. Regal. They call him Mr. Regal, like he doesn't have a first name. Is it Steve? Is it William? William Steve? Steve William Regal? We don't know. Anyway, during the last stretch of the match, William Regal is trying to give Lexis King his brass knuckles. He's just sliding him the brass knuckles. And Lexis King is like, no, I don't want that. I don't want to do it like that. And then he loses to a German suplex. I was like, wow, that's real man shit? I don't know. And I'm still sitting here like, are we pretending he's not Charlie Dempsey's daddy? Because I could sure we maybe I didn't listen to the commentary. Maybe they said that he is, but given I want to have a conversation about that next week, where Charlie Dempsey has to go and be like, hey, you know, like, you were going to give him brass knucks to knock me out? Like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? But I guess it was just a test to see if Lexis King had really changed. He really have a change of heart. And it's legitimate. All this stuff is just a test to see if Lexis King is really trying to be somebody different than who he usually is. And he's taking all these losses and looking all sympathetic because he is. He's legitimately changed. And I have to say I'm very impressed. Match number 3 on the show, Brinley Reese is defeated by Zarya. This match went longer than it probably should have. Zarya wins with the F5. At one point, Zarya popped Brinley Reese's arm out of place, which is the old Alexa Bliss double jointed trick. It looked nasty. It really did. They should have just ended the match. See, I when they did this thing with Alexa Bliss, usually it's like an Eddie Guerrero situation where she pops her arm out of place and then, you know, she pops it back in and she tries to like roll you up or something. It's like always trying to get sympathy from the referee or whatever. Like, if next time they do something like that, the referee should just look at that arm and be like, no, we calling it. It's over. That arm is destroyed. And, you know, why not do that? I know it would have been better if she got pinned, which, you know, she eventually got pinned anyway. But if you're going to do the double jointed gimmick, it should lead to disqualifications, or it should be like an Eddie Guerrero gimmick where it's a distraction. You know, this time it was about showing how powerful Zarya is, because she lifted Brinley Reese in the air and twisted her arm out of place, and then she twisted her arm back into place. I was like, they kind of wasted it. You know, it's some double jointed chicks out there, and they can do cool stuff like this with their bodies. You know, make it mean something, you know, instead of doing this. Now they did. This is important to talk about because they actually teased Ren Sinclair being Zarya's opponent because she wanted to impress Charlie Dempsey, so she was going to challenge Zarya. So clearly they picked Brinley Reese because she could pop her arm out of place like this, and that was just like a cool gimmick that they can throw in there. Like, they like freak shit like that. In any event, Zarya wins with the F5, like I said previously. Fallon Henley comes to the ring, says that she's going to teach Zarya not to mess with Fatal Influence. Then Roxanne Perez comes to the ring because her and Cora Jade are going to quote-unquote welcome Zarya to NXT. At that point, Kalani Jordan appeared out of nowhere and jumped to Zaria's aid. And then they were like, well, it's 4 against 2, so what? And then Stephanie Vaquer and Julia come out there and it's like, it's 4 on, 5 on 2, 4. No big deal. And then Jordan Grace, her theme music plays and the place explodes. And it's a big 5-on-5 brawl, which leads to Roxanne Perez being bench pressed and thrown out of the ring. And Booker T was not happy that his girl got tossed outside the ring. He was less than enthused about that. So they set up the match next week. The Big 10-woman tag is going to be Cora Jade, Roxanne Perez, Fallon Henley, JC Jane, and Jasmine Nix versus Zaria, Stephanie Vaquer, Julia, Kalani Jordan, and Jordan Grace. So it's going to be one hell of a match. 10 women in the ring at the same time. Very, very hot. Kind of a big situation here. I'm not a big fan of Zaria being in this situation, especially due to the next segment that features her, which is, the usual Kalani Jordan backstage in the locker room area, where each one of them are talking about who they want to fight and leave this one to me. And Zaria's back there with them. And I'm like, she's too new. And they portrayed her as being sort of a monster kind of character. I don't know if I like the idea of her being in this 10-man tag as it is, let alone mingling with all of these characters and looking quite normal. I kind of wanted her to be like in a different mode, like in a different area, a different environment, where she's kind of like the looming threat for all of these champions, like kind of like a I don't know how else, like a Goldberg or an Undertaker, where it doesn't really matter if you're a babyface or a heel. She's gonna go out there to put the beats on you, because her opponent was Brinley Reese, and Brinley Reese is a babyface, right? So it's a perfect setup for you to have sort of a powerhouse character that doesn't really care if you're a babyface or a heel, that's gonna put you down. That would have been fine. But now I guess she's one of the girls like everybody else. That's not cool. Anyway, this leads to Rhea Ripley, who came to see Zaria and came to see this team. I'm like, you got there fast. So she asked Zaria if she was ready. Of course, Zaria is ready. I don't know why she's talking to her. I don't know. I guess they just wanted to show them side by side. And then later, we find Rhea Ripley a victim of the NXT parking lot as a cackling Liv Morgan and a silent Raquel Rodriguez walk away with baseball bats. So we're led to believe that Rhea Ripley got stalked to NXT by Liv Morgan. Now wait a minute. Let's go through this. Rhea Ripley was watching her television. She sees her countrywoman, her comrade Zaria, on television. Decides she has to go see this team that she's concocted for herself. So she goes to see this team. She says literally 4 sentences to them. And Liv Morgan followed Rhea Ripley from wherever she was to NXT and then waited in the parking lot and beat her with bats. That's what we're supposed to believe occurred. That's extraordinary. All right. That is extraordinary. I love it. I love dumb shit like this, man. It's 100% dumb shit. I love it. If you like it, I love it, baby. Speaking of liking it and loving it, they show vignettes for Jada Parker and Lola Vice. Lola Vice, once again, they're talking about her MMA background, while Jada Parker talked about weapons, which I was like, oh, baby. Jada Parker, man, that girl fine. I appreciate that they're talking about their individual style, with Jada Parker being a more street-based character. Then, yeah, the weapons, the kendo sticks, the whatever, is more her speed. While Lola Vice is a fighter, therefore she gets to use chokes and kicks and all sorts of things that she wouldn't normally use in a hardcore fight. So it ought to be interesting. It ought to be fun. Gooner baits are going to do what they do, but I mean, you can't do nothing about that. I know a lot of people hate the gooning with NXT, but it's part of the culture now, bro. You're going to have to get over it. You're going to have to get over it. So NXT was fun. You know, the main event was great. It was, you know, it was atypical when it comes to WWE. You know, you couldn't have this match every week. You can't have that match every other week, but you could do it every once in a while. And having this kind of match was great for this show because it needed it. It took it to the next level, and nothing else on the show was like it. So when you have nothing else on the show that's like Javon Evans and Cedric Alexander versus Nathan Frazer and Axiom, it stands out a lot more. And it's actually easier to forgive because it's not 4 of those matches on the show at the same time, or 3 of them or whatever. And the match doesn't go on forever, even though they did a lot. You know, it didn't go on forever. That was the best match on the show. Probably one of the best matches you'll probably see all week. So that's one thing. The casket match kind of got me flummoxed because I didn't hate it, but also didn't love it. Kind of a bastardization of a gimmick that I actually like. At the same time, though, it is kind of, you know, they're trying to take it to a different place because there's different characters involved. Zarya's debut was fine. I feel like she shouldn't have took too much damage, and I think Brinley Reese probably got a little too much in. Nikita Lyons, distraction. I hated it, you know, but her losing was fine because Kalani Jordan is on the way up, and they're moving Nikita towards something else. I'm a big fan of what they're doing with Tony D'Angelo. I'm looking forward to that. So I'm going to close NXT with this. There was a rumor floating about that Oba Femi is done in NXT. I forget who was, it was some dirt sheet that was going around spreading that Oba Femi was basically saying his goodbyes on NXT backstage at Halloween Havoc. And there's talk of him being called up. And let me tell you, I really hope that this is false. Not because I don't want to see him on the big stage. It's just that I know that he's not going to get what he needs on the big stage, the quote-unquote big stage. I mean, my God, I sound like one of those black and gold idiots right now, but I'm really deeply concerned at what I'm seeing when it comes to NXT talent being called up to the main roster. You know, Kiana James. But even before she got hurt, where was she? What was she doing? Nothing. Blair Davenport. I don't even know if she's injured or dead. I don't have no idea where she is. Nobody has any idea where she is. Braun Breaker, he's a 2-time Intercontinental Champion. Yeah, 2 times in 48 days or something like that. Like, this is ridiculous. Why is he even losing to Sami Zayn and Jey Uso? This is ridiculous. You know, and we can go on and on. Tiffany Stratton, she's the Miss Money in the Bank, but she never wins. She doesn't wrestle. She doesn't look cool. There's like so many things that we can go on about. And I'm not fully accepting that Oba Femi would be used correctly on the main roster in WWE. I just don't believe it. You know, so I hope it's not true. I hope he comes back just, you know, refocused. Give him some time off to refresh the character because he's been a little overexposed a little bit. He's lost twice in a row. That's not good for his gimmick. Well, I guess, you know, not twice in a row, I guess. But give him some time off. Let this Trick Williams thing play out with Ridge Holland. And then you re-debut Oba Femi against Trick Williams. And then I would 100% fully support Oba Femi taking that belt from Trick Williams. You know, I saw that Trick Williams is getting a lot of hate, you know, and I said it before, you know, he's not the best in the ring, but I certainly don't think that he's the worst. You know, he just needs somebody to guide him. That's what happens when you're green, man. The guy's been wrestling about 2 years. You know, as a solo act, it's only been about 2 years. So he needs more experienced guys in there to help him along. So that's it for NXT. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
Old non-aggression. Once that lesson sets in, you'll see a session. But you got an affection for no progression, regression. The best don't